Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating cultural disconnect to reveal how two incredibly simple words can mean drastically different things depending on where you are in the world. We all think we know how to apologize, right? But it turns out an apology in one language might just be a massive insult in another. Take a simple phrase like, "I'm sorry." You'd naturally think basic manners are universal. But, well, here's the wild part. Even after decades of deep, ongoing cooperation in both global business and international politics, powerhouses like America and Japan still manage to trip over the basic concept of the apology. Neither culture fully understands what the other actually means or what they expect to hear.
Let's look at two real-world, high-stakes blunders to see what I mean. Back in 2010, amid widespread reports of malfunctioning accelerators in Toyota Prius vehicles, the CEO issued effusive, deeply emotional apologies. The result? American audiences were completely unmoved. They wanted fixes, not feelings. Flip the script to 2001. A U.S. submarine tragically collided with and sank a Japanese fishing boat. The U.S. commander didn't immediately apologize, and Japan was absolutely outraged, bristling at what they saw as a glaring omission of basic human decency.
So why the massive disconnect? Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. High-stakes blunders, culpability versus relationship repair, the apology gap, the trust experiment, and finally, navigating a globalized world.
Okay, Section 1. Culpability versus repair, understanding the divide.
To really grasp this semantic disconnect, we first have to look at the exact word that divides the East and the West here, culpability. According to the research, Americans directly link an apology to culpability. They view saying "I'm sorry" strictly as an outright admission of wrongdoing. If you apologize, you're basically saying, "Yep, I'm the one at fault."
So the crucial point is that in the U.S., an apology translates pretty directly to "I am the one who is responsible." And this is driven by a strong Western psychological tendency to attribute events directly to an individual's specific actions. It's a very individualistic view of the world.
But cross the Pacific and the interpretation completely flips. In Japan's much more group-oriented culture, that exact same apology is heard simply as, "It is unfortunate that this happened." It serves as a sincere expression of eagerness to repair a damaged relationship. There's absolutely no culpability or personal blame implied. You're just acknowledging a bad situation and showing you want to restore the harmony.
Moving on to Section 2, the apology gap, mindset into behavior. So how does this internal mindset actually change what people do in their everyday lives? Well, researchers surveyed U.S. and Japanese undergraduate students to track how often they actually use the word sorry. And what they found was a massive, undeniable gap.
Because Japanese students will readily apologize, even when they aren't personally responsible for whatever went wrong, they recalled issuing an average of 11.05 apologies in just the previous week alone. That's well over an apology a day, just to maintain the social peace.
Now compare that to the U.S. students. They averaged a mere 4.51 apologies in that exact same time frame. It brilliantly highlights how the American fear of admitting guilt, of being held legally or personally culpable, severely restricts their willingness to apologize in daily life.
Which brings us to Section 3, the trust experiment, real-world decisions.
Let's see how this plays out in the real world of business. I want you to imagine you're a hiring manager for a moment. You're watching a video of an applicant for an accounting job. And in this video, the applicant confesses and apologizes for deliberately filing an incorrect tax return for a prior client. Ask yourself, would you trust their promise that they wouldn't do it again? Would you hire them?
When researchers ran this exact study, the results were completely polarized. Japanese students, acting as the managers, were far more willing to trust the candidate's apology and their promise not to repeat the mistake, so they offered them the job. The American managers, though, their instinct to associate apologies entirely with blame made them highly distrustful. They were much less likely to hire the applicant.
Finally, let's look at Section 4, globalized world, multinational relations.
Because think about it, if a simple apology can ruin a job interview, imagine the havoc it can wreak on multinational corporate negotiations. And this pattern doesn't just stop with America and Japan, it really extends globally. Just look at this breakdown. While U.S. apologies focus on establishing personal responsibility, Chinese apologies focus on the larger consequences. Over in India, apologies are far less common overall, And in Hong Kong, they are so prevalent and highly ritualized that people are practically inured to them. They've just become background noise.
The big takeaway here is that for global executives and leaders, understanding these profound differences is entirely non-negotiable. By tuning into these cultural nuances that so easily get lost in translation, you can transform the apology from a perceived legal liability into an incredibly powerful tool. Used right, apologies are absolutely essential for facilitating negotiations, quickly resolving conflicts, and actively repairing trust.
As we wrap up today's explainer, I really want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. If something as basic as saying "I'm sorry" can mean the literal difference between sealing a global partnership and sparking an international incident, in our rapid rush to globalization, what other vital cultural nuances are we just ignoring and losing in translation? Thanks so much for learning with us today, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.